That.
Sandeep
And
sir is my mentor actually at
No,
ISCA.
no, nothing like that.
I would like to introduce Submita because we already announced the webinar today, so many people already know you, I think so. But Sandeep, can you please introduce yourself?
So I should go in first?
Yeah, you can introduce
Yeah.
your first, and then the main person, Submita, will will do later.
Okay. Sure. So my name is Sandeep Chatterjee. I work in the supply chain domain at Trinomics. Earlier, I had worked with companies like Deloitte, KPMG. Spent about 25 years in this domain right now. And my specialty is supply chain, sustainability, technology. That's in a very brief about myself. And I also am the CEO and chairman of ISCA India. So that's a position which I pro bono role which I carry to take the flag of ISCA flying in India.
Mm. How long have you worked with ISCA? You opened you
It's
bring
about
ISCA to
it's
India.
about 10 years now.
Wow, so long. For Vietnam Supply Chain Network, we bring to Vietnam only from September last year, very new.
No,
Mm.
but you are very active. I see you on LinkedIn and it's doing very well. So very,
Yeah,
very active.
we should learn from you more and more. Indonesia also very long, Singapore, Malaysia,
Yes.
yeah, very long.
Because Dr. Prem Kumar and Dr. Pujan, I know them personally. I have visited them, so they know me personally. So
Yeah. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you very much for your
sure.
introduction yourself. Now, the members on our members on today, Submita, I would like to ask you some questions. The first is, can we do recording?
Yes, sure, sure. I think I
Yeah,
haven't said okay.
the recording we will
Yes,
publish on the web on the YouTube B of VSCN. It's okay for you?
yes, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, thank you. And for the slide, you already sent us the slide, and I have a look already. You will control the slide by yourself, or we present.
So
We
I can also I can present it, not a problem.
Oh, okay, thank
You
you.
just give me the rights, I can share it.
Yeah, right, thanks. So, Submita, I would like to introduce you from outside first. We are Vietnam Supply Chain Network. I am founder Ngọc Nguyễn. We have two other core team, Mr. Minh Duy, Nguyễn Lê Minh Duy, and one is Nancy. But Nancy is based in New Zealand, and Mr. Duy he based in Vietnam. And Mr. Duy, he is working for DHL about the supply chain in Vietnam. And today he will join with us. But now, Duy, you already here? Today he will also host with me to take care about the Q&A. But now he is still maybe busy with the meeting with Amazon in his company. He will join later on. And together with us today, many Vietnamese people from the member of Vietnam Supply Chain Network join with us, and we all of us want to learn from you. And maybe they have the questions later on, and maybe we will discuss together another about the topic of sustainable supply chain. And thank you very much for all of you join the webinar today. And I would like to introduce you. We have Submita. She will present about the topic today. And in India, we have Sandeep. Sandeep is the CEO and chairman of ISCA India. Yeah. So now I handle the main speaker to you, Submita. You can introduce yourself.
Okay.
You can continue with your presentation.
Okay. Very good evening, and very good evening to you, Nok and Sandeep sir. So I'm Dr. Sushmita Nande. I have been working, say, in industry and academia from last 27 years. And I worked in manufacturing and quality and supply chain and Whirlpool of India Limited in India that's into refrigeration. And then I am an academic from last 18 plus years, I would say, more than 18 years. So 18, 19 years I've been into teaching, manufacturing, that's production operations management and supply chain and all that. And of course, I also have my Six Sigma black belt and all other things. And I've been associated with ISCA from last 4 years. Sandeep sir is our guide anyways. He always very humble to say no, but I have been really inspired by him in writing cases and all other things. So that's it from my side. But my areas are supply chain, sustainability. My PhD is in sustainability, and I'm more interested in the transformation of traditional supply chains to sustainable supply chains, so that especially we are talking about emissions and all that thing. So my prime interest is in all these areas. How can industries transition into sustainable supply chains? So that's my topic for today. So should I start my session?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just
Sorry, the audience, if you have any question, you can write in the question under the paper and you raise your hand later on in the Q&A session, or you can message to the chat. We will review the Q&A, review your question in the Q&A session. Thank you. Continue, Sumita.
Okay, just go to my slide. Can you see my
Yes, we can see
yeah,
now.
okay, I'll just adjust the things a little bit here. Okay. So we are talking about sustainable supply chains from efficiency to system redesign. This is the topic, integrating environmental, social, and economic value in global networks. As I just mentioned, that traditional supply chains are facing a lot of problems today. There's a need to redesign the system from only an optimized and efficiency driven system to more of a sustainable supply chain that has an inbuilt efficiency in their system. So we'll talk about this in detail, because this is a very important area that all the companies are trying to transition themselves to more of a sustainable supply chain. And the thing is that many of the companies want to do it, but they are not clear how to do it. So some of the I'll be presenting this. The session roadmap is that first we'll talk about this. Why current designs create. What are the problems of today? Why sustainability challenges are there in the current system design, and then integrating the environmental, social, and economic objectives, because these are the three dimensions of sustainability. I'm also going to take you around different sector specific dynamics across industries, because that is very important. All the various sectors I have taken as examples and what problems they have in respect to sustainability, and then how can these advanced technologies enable this sustainability, or can enable visibility and decision making, and of course the strategic pathways for redesign and implementation. How should a company or a sector try to redesign its system, and some successful cases at the end that are like benchmarks or like examples, which can help to understand how things have been done by different industries successfully. So let's start with this. And of course, if you have any question, please unmute and ask me directly, because I may not be seeing the chat frequently. So it's my request that if there's any, say example, some disturbance in the noise, or the slide playing, not changing, or even any query, please unmute and let me know. So yes, so why sustainability now? Why all are talking about sustainability, and we all are having so many summits and conferences and everything happening around the world around this sustainability word. So we all know that now sustainability is not optional. It is a compulsion now for many of the companies, and it has become an imperative where there are a lot of regulations coming up, and in some cases there are enforcement, and investors are also behaving according to the ESG or environmental, social, and governance core. And there are a lot of risks, uh, included or inherent in these decisions. And hence nowadays customers are also demanding transparency. So investors or different stakeholders in a company are, requiring transparency in the dealings, in various processes. And that's the reason sustainability is not just a mere reporting thing now, but it has become a strategic, decision now for companies who want to be the leaders. They are uh, adopting, or rather using the sustainability as a strategic shift rather than just simply reporting what they are doing and all that. So if a company wants to be a leader, they need to be sustainable, and not just simply sustainable, but be a leader in sustainability, or maybe having a very good demonstration in sustainability to be a leader. So, uh, of course, now many of the companies are facing a lot of regulatory pressures, and that's the reason sustainability has come into the system, and people are trying to understand what they can do and how they can report efficiently, or what changes they can do in their systems to be sustainable. So we all know this concept of sustainability, a very simple concept to start with. I'll just explain, but not speak much about this in detail here, because my topic is more about redesign. So we all know that the triple bottom line concept, where the three pillars of these three concepts are very important. That is the economic, social, and environmental, where environmental performance is a very important part. In that you have the emissions, the water consumption, the energy consumption, resource utilization, and all those things. There are many things in environmental performance. In social responsibility, the labor conditions, the safety, the workplace related factors, then the safety, the equity, work-life balance. There are many things in social responsibility. And of course, in the economic viability, that is the cost, efficiency, the resilience, the profitability. Basically, all businesses need to be profitable, others they can't sustain. So economic part is always there, but these are the two other things, environmental and social pillars, which are also very, very important for any business to be sustainable. And of course, these are interdependent. Let me tell you that nothing can just function just like that. So they have to be interdependent, and just following one aspect will not help. So all the three things have to be equally balanced, and that is what is the triple bottom line concept, which is a very important concept in sustainability. So I'll not spend much time on this. Uh, I would directly jump into the core problems of today. So, what are the problems of global supply chains? Now, traditional supply chains have been always wanting to be fast, just like a relay race. Everybody is just trying to be the fastest one. We can see that all the supply chains that have been traditionally designed are always talking about cost efficiency, speed, and scale. So, like say example, there's a e-commerce, and now there's quick commerce, which is very in India especially. We see quick commerce is a very important business now, and rather we can see how global supply chains have been working to engineer all these things. So these are the traditional supply chains which are built to be more cost efficient. And say example, a company, or like the e-commerce, you can see Amazon or Flipkart or any other company which had been functioning last 10 years or so. They used to deliver things maybe in after 24 hours or after 2 days, and now it's just within the same day, within few hours. And so speed has become a very important determinant for success, as well as who can earn how much profit. And how can you optimize the cost is also another important thing. So scaling up of businesses, and now you can see that how Amazon, Flipkart, or any other company has spanned across the world, and they are now global, and they are stretching from various countries. So these are the global supply chains now, and we cannot just say that a company just you can say these companies are they are working in so many continents and countries. So that's the problem of today, that these companies are not taking into consideration the other two things, that is the environmental degradation and the social would say the factors, where social inequity is rising, and the we can see that the environmental degradation of the emissions and a lot of other things that we'll discuss in the later slides, they are increasing, and that's actually posing indirectly the economic risk, which companies are not realizing. So that's the reason the same design has to now redesign, and that's the reason the topic is of redesigning, that the same traditional supply chains need to redesign into a different system so that you can be sustainable. And that's the whole crux of the topic today. So, people may think that sustainability challenges are, operational inefficiencies. They may think that, uh, because of different operational problems, say example, manufacturing related or logistics related or procurement related or any other thing. There are the inefficiencies in operation. It's not like that. The problem stems from the design issue always. So the current design that has been traditional for last so many years should change because of the uh, different factors, global scenarios, as well as uh, that is what the problems of today's businesses are. So you can say that every company wants to maximize profit. Everyone wants to be very fast. Everyone wants to scale into different areas and so on. But along with the expansion, they're also multiplying the carbon emission. They're also multiplying.
Gửi cái Gmail phải cái gì đâu nào?
Can you
Đó
hear
có gì
me?
nào?
Hello.
Đâu thế là con gửi vào cái email nào? Đức Minh vào ván nó thằng mà có của mẹ là có phải mở email con chứ. Mẹ chưa nhận được đâu. Ai đâu này. 942164.
How to mute him?
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, so we can see that, say, I'm giving you an example of India, and I'm sure Vietnam also has the same, we are all growing economies. So we can see how aggregators we're using Ola, Uber, this, that frequently. We are using, like in our country, we have quick commerce, we're using Amazon, we have Blinkit, we are using Zepto, we are using all these aggregators for, or rather quick commerce, things. So we are buying things left and right. And we are also, companies are selling goods 100 times more than what they used to do. Similarly, consumers are also consuming more and more. So there's overproduction, there's overconsumption. Both the things are going on. And this is leading to more emissions now because there are more trips, there are more logistics net, there are more trips of the vehicles, more last mile delivery happening everywhere. There's more and more things happening. So these are also depleting a lot of natural resources, like say fuel. Everybody is worried about fuel these days, and there are these natural resources which are getting depleted. Water, energy, everything 100 times are increasing. So we can see that these patterns are insufficient consumption. These are not good for the future. Hence, because we are talking about sustainability. So we have to talk about our future. And that's the reason we can see that at the same time, there's the environment thing. In case of social, we can see that how gig workers are, working. For example, these delivery boys who are for the, we can see the courier related or the quick commerce delivery is happening they have to deliver, say, example, in 10-15 minutes or 20 minutes. There's a pressure always. So there is a very high risk of accidents or very bad scenario when they are delivering under a particular time. At the same time, we don't know how they're getting exploited, and we also don't know about their social security. We are also not knowing about the workplace. Example, a logistics worker may have delivery deadlines, maybe working in shifts because there's more and more, what do you say, pressure when there is a peak of deliveries. So, example, on e-commerce, you announce something of discounts, and then there's a stress on the logistics on the warehouse. And then, say, example, these delivery boys have to work in few shifts, and they are like stressing their time, and I don't know whether they get paid or not. So there are a lot of workplace related issues. There are a lot of social inequality, and these ultimately boil down to the economic risk. So short term, maybe they are gaining good, but for the long term, this is not at all a good solution. So that's the reason today's designs or the traditional designs are really not efficient for the long term perspective or from the sustainable point of view. And also, we can see that uh, now the consumer expectations and the investor expectations are changing rapidly. People want transparency. They say, example, they need to know what contents are there in a food product. You cannot hide these things. So even investor needs to know what processes and what is the ESG score. So there is a lot of transparency requirement in today's systems. And for company being transparent, you need to have a very good ecosystem with the other stakeholders. So that is the reason today's global supply chains are facing a lot of issues with respect to integration and the scattered data or fragmentation of data that is there across the supply chain. So example, you don't know what your supplier is doing. So there are these multi-tiered network of a company, and say example, tier one level, maybe as a company what suppliers are doing, but what about the tier two, tier three suppliers? We don't know whether they're sourcing ethically. We don't know whether their workers are paid properly. We don't know what ethical practices they are doing, and so on. There are a lot of problems which are not visible. So supply chain visibility is a very big problem for global supply chain network. And because of this, ultimately the company gets affected, and there's a regulatory pressure and a lot of other things that will always be a very big problem for the company if this is the problem, if the data is fragmented. So the core problem is that there is technology. It's not that technology is not there, but technology alone cannot help to solve the problem. You need a very good, stakeholder cooperation and a collaborative framework in order to, it as just like a relay race. We know the basic concept of supply chain is just like a relay race. You need to have good cooperation. But if the suppliers are not cooperating, or if the other stakeholders are not cooperating, it's a very difficult scenario for a company. So that's the reason we need to have a very good ecosystem and a collaborative framework where transparency is there, and these things can be solved using technology. So we'll go to this technology a little bit later, but this is the core problem of today, right? So what is a sustainable supply chain? Now we can see from this figure that the supply chains that are focusing on the three interdependent dimensions, that is the economic, environmental, and social, becomes a sustainable supply chain. So say example, just few examples, that's raw materials should be ethically sourced. Then consumption should be justified. There should not be overconsumption. Production also should be with minimum resources. So Then you can say distribution or the logistics network should have minimum emissions. So everything when you take into totality, and we can see that, say example, the social part also is integrated, where uh, the labor conditions or equity, gender equality, or community impact, all these things are there in the system. Then only those systems are called a sustainable supply chain, or those supply chains can be termed as sustainable. And whenever there's a failure always happens when, say example, a company is only focused on the economic perspective to earn profits. But what about emissions? They are heavily emitting carbon, then they are not at all sustainable. So these are the things that it may happen that companies are earning profit for a short term, but they are not integrating the environment aspect in their supply chains, where they are talking about, or they should reduce the carbon emissions or the footprint of carbon, reduce energy and water consumption, or resource efficiency should be there in their system. So all these things are always the ingredients in a sustainable supply chain. Now, if you see the global supply chain network, it is a system view where there are multi-tiered network. And that's the reason it's a very, what do you say, it's not an easy thing. Because as I said, a company and its first tier level of suppliers and consumers, or can at least be visible, but maybe beyond that, it is very difficult. So being a multi-tiered network, that too spanning across different countries, less lack of visibility and traceability is a very difficult thing. And you don't know what is happening in the other country, what about their labor, what about their consumers, and so many other things. So since this network design itself is a supply chain's main backbone, but on the other hand, again, the other side is that unless you have visibility and transparency, it is very difficult there. So that is the reason, especially in the upstream network, that is at the suppliers and multi-tier supplier networks, visibility and control are the weakest. And that's the reason for sustainable supply chain, it's always advisable, or it is always a challenge to work on these upstream network, right? So we'll go to this details later on. Now, regarding the technology advantage, as I just mentioned, that there is a lot of what you say, technologies are there. Like we are living in an era of AI, automation, then you can say digital twins, IoT, blockchain. There are so many types of technologies that are there, and there are many companies who have successfully implemented it also. But problem is that many of the companies don't know how to use it and for what to use it. There's lack of skill in the employees. People don't want to experiment and spend money. So because these are upfront investments, so investing into blockchain, investing into IoT, network and all those things will always require investments. So companies are not ready to, try and do all these things. So they want sure shot, success. So that is the reason they are like little bit slow in implementing all these things. That is number one thing. Second thing is the lack of financial support, especially the MSMEs or the small and medium companies, enterprises who face a lot of financial pressures. They find it difficult to invest into all these technologies, and they don't have the scale, they lack in scale, and that's the reason they're always behind. But remember that MSMEs are always part of any supply chain. So it's very important to include these MSMEs in the transition process. Otherwise, as a company, it is very difficult to be sustainable. So there is technology, but again, as I said, technology alone cannot do wonders. You have to use technology as an input or as a facilitator or as an enabler. That's it. But everything has to be done by your own network or your relations with the stakeholders, which is very, very important. So technology is one of the aspect in a sustainable supply chain. However, it will make the supply chains very powerful. Now, this is a very important thing which I want to discuss is the trade-off between sustainability and cost. So as I just mentioned that companies find it difficult whether should we invest into, say, example, an AI based system, or say there are so many softwares and um, eh, there are so many technologies that can help the companies to be more fast, more efficient, or even sustainable, because say there are a lot of softwares which are measuring these carbon emissions across the supply chain. But whether a company will implement it or not, because it may cost them few crores of rupees or whatever, all those currencies I'm not mentioning, but there's always a trade-off frontier involving cost, carbon emissions, and social equity. So, say example, uh, see, traditionally low cost sourcing is, say, a company example, will always try to reduce the cost. So they may go for a low cost supplier. But it may happen that this low cost supplier may emit the highest carbon. It may happen. This could be the scenario. So then it is not at all a good solution long term. So uh, both the things has to be there. That is, the cost has to be minimum, but at the same time emissions also has to be less. And that's the reason the traditional system doesn't work here. uh, but see, basically it may happen that one dimension is good, say the cost or the economic frontier is good. On the economic front it is good, but on the social front there could be a lot of worker related issues in a company. There could be bad workplace culture, there could be inequality in the system. So these things are always going to be noticed. If not short term, long term, this is always going to be a problem. So that is the reason again, the trade-off means that when you are weighing the sustainability related cost versus your traditional supply chain cost, you have to see that sustainability has to be a long-term promising thing, where since sustainability has an economic, always anything that is economically viable always is sustainable. So the perception of people is that sustainability comes with cost. So that is totally wrong. Sustainability always saves cost in the long term. So that mindset has to change of people, that sustainability comes with a cost. There could be some upfront cost, but we need to understand the return on investment concept, where these upfront costs may save a lot of costs in future, and hence these are always viable. So those every time a company has to do this trade-off concept, and then take the decision, right decision, whether to invest in some specific technology or what do you say, change in the certain processes or switch over to different material. All these kind of decisions should be always done on this trade-off concept. Now, the biggest problem of any company is, I'm directly jumping to this, but I will explain you that the emissions across the supply chain, the carbon emissions comprises of these three categories: scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So scope 1 always is the direct emissions of a company, where you can say that, say example, whatever fuel you use or whatever process you burn the fuel in your company, or you have a furnace, you are having steel or any kind of thing you are making. So the direct emissions within a company is the scope 1. And say example, the second scope 2 emissions are those which are the purchased ones, for the purchased fuel or steam, or say for heating and cooling systems, whatever fuel we use. All these come under the scope 2 emissions and scope 2 category. And the scope 3 is, you can see that contributes to roughly 70 to 90% of the total organizational carbon footprint, which are the indirect emissions. So you can say that the suppliers' emissions is one of the category of scope 3. There are 15 categories, but in that some examples I'll give you. Employee commuting by bus or vehicles also come in scope 3 emissions. Waste disposal, then you can say distribution of products, or you can say the logistics related emissions, everything, all the indirect emissions come in the scope 3, which is a larger share of emissions which goes unnoticed or not properly calculated. Let us mention it here. Why it does not get easily calculated is because it is very difficult to calculate right now. A reason is the structure of the supply chain again, which is a multi-tier geographically dispersed supply network. Now, say example, if you want to measure the scope 3 emissions across the supply chain, you will require the data of all your suppliers, all your distributors, and every other, every intake, every criteria of scope 3 emissions. You need to know, which is very difficult. So that is the reason it is a highly dynamic, opaque, and difficult to control. Now I'm using the word dynamic because supply chains are not constant. They're always dynamic. There is always some other the changes in supply chain where supplier the what do you say, demand forecasting changes, the route changes, the what do you say, customer changes, everything is always changing. So it is always a dynamic. There's no fixed system that you can calculate XYZ using some formula, and that is always the thing. So since it is dynamic, it's opaque because you cannot see beyond a particular boundary. Say example, for the time being, we say only we know tier 1 or something like that. Beyond that, you cannot see what are their emissions. So that's the reason, because of the structural issue, there is always a problem. And that's the reason companies are not able to calculate the scope 3 emissions accurately, and hence they cannot report it. And let me tell you that there are a lot of these frameworks uh, for reporting, especially for the ESG or environmental social governance. There are this GRI framework, and there are a lot of other frameworks where we can see now all these ESG reporting on the company's websites. They are necessarily required to report scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions on their websites. And that's what everyone needs to know, right from the suppliers or investors or customers, anyone. Now, the problem is, I had done some research here also in India, and I had seen that we are using the BRSR reporting right now. Majority of the companies are reporting scope 1 and scope 2. Scope 3 is very less reported. Now, scope 3 is a voluntary reporting here. So nobody wants to report it, and especially it's difficult to report. Unless and until it is compulsory, no company wants to venture into it because it is a very difficult thing right now. But this thing is the main thing of the emissions. So in order to reduce carbon emissions, one has to first remove these scope 3 emissions. Scope 1 and scope 2 still is within the control of a company. So that is the reason the structural problem of supply chain, or the structural paradox which I mentioned, is accountable for it. And that's the reason this is a very big problem of today. Now I'll go sector wise, how companies are facing problems with respect to these emissions or sustainability in general. Number one is the logistics sector. And we know that logistics systems have expanded like anything. Now, I'll tell from my country's perspective, logistics is in a boom because of, again, e-commerce and now quick commerce. And uh, companies are exporting, they are increasing their businesses abroad, they are also globalizing their, or People are, because of globalization, they're expanding across different continents too. So here logistic systems are not only, facilitating it on one hand, but also are emitting equal amount of emissions. So one side is very good of logistics, that it is enabling all these things, but the other side is that it is also contributing to the emissions. Imagine that earlier people used to go to a retail store and buy groceries. I also remember that 10 years back, I used to go to a shop and buy my monthly groceries, or maybe twice in a month. But now I can, order anything anytime. Maybe even twice a day I can order. So imagine the number of trips that have increased, and the number or amount of consumption that is also increasing. So this is also leading to the emissions which has increased over a period of time. So especially speed is a very important thing now. As I just mentioned some time back, that e-commerce is in boom, and e-commerce is has become more and more faster. Is always striving to. It's always the fastest one, which is the best one. So earlier it was 7 days delivery, which reduced to 2 days delivery, same day delivery. Now in within few hours we are getting things. So speed is very, very important now. But with this speed, we are also increasing the emissions. So where does it go? Ultimately, it is the environmental degradation that is happening. So carbon intensity is also increasing proportionately here. In case of manufacturing, let me tell you that today's manufacturing has also changed over a period of time. Uh, Let me tell you that because I worked in manufacturing, my olden ways of manufacturing are different now. People are going for more what do you say, optimized methods, where now see, if example, if you have to produce more and more, you need to also uh, you will also require more and more resources. So they are always resource demanding. You will also consume more energy. You will also consume more raw material, and at the same time you will also generate more process waste, because process waste is a very big problem again of many manufacturing companies. The way they produce is also impacting sustainability. Now, how many companies are using the waste 100%? They are recycling, or they are making use of it. We don't know. There are many companies who are just dumping the waste, maybe the solid waste, liquid waste, gaseous waste, whatever. So that is again, more and more manufacturing is also increasing these wastes, and their efficiencies and speed is there. Of course, people are trying to make manufacturing at lower cost. That is their objective, but they are not trying to reduce these waste and also save money. That is the again problem. So again, these carbon challenge means these heavy industries like steel and cement and chemicals, they are always using the energy intensive processes. They maybe steel and all these metals require furnaces 5,000 degrees, 6,000 degrees. They are repeatedly more and more temperatures, more and more carbon. And we all know that in furnaces they use coke. The carbon that is used for reducing metals, again, it will lead to more and more CO2. So more steel production, more carbon. And these are always labor intensive operations, always. And we know there are a lot of companies which are facing a lot of problems at suppliers end, maybe that worker safety, wages, working conditions, and the small manufacturers, especially here, face a lot of cost related uh, issues, or a lack of profitability and all these things. So, if you take all these three things into consideration, manufacturing sector also is getting affected, and that's the reason sustainability is a very important part in manufacturing now. In the energy sector, let me tell you, there's a lot of things going on. We know that especially in countries, developing countries, we are talking about renewable energy, and In India, say example, solar solarification is a very important thing, or switching over to alternate sources of electricity, and there are a lot of things going on. Hydrogen projects, a lot of things are there, which they are trying to do, because we can see that how dependence on fossil fuel is a risk to our system. And that's the reason many of the companies have proactively started switching over to these renewable energy. And because we know that fossil fuel is really not a good thing for our future. And the other advantage is that you can save a lot of money, or rather, it is more cost efficient than the conventional thing. But the risk again here is the payback period, which many of the small companies, as usual, face problems is the payback period. So we need again a good support from the government and the policy, where they can invest into it, but they should get back the money. The payback period should be shorter, and also some kind of subsidies are there. In our country, we have the SOR, we have the different schemes of the government where they enable companies to they are providing subsidies for the solar. Even at a farmer's farm, you can see all these things there. So there are a lot of subsidies which people are enabling, and that's the reason it's lot of things are going on at the energy sector front, because energy security is something, is a topic of the, it's a national interest. So it's not only a company or a sector, but as a country, how can you be more secure from the energy point of view is a very important thing. And that's the reason a lot of projects are going on in our country also to reduce the dependency on fossil fuels. Now, with respect to automotive and mobility, let me tell you that electrification, we all know that EVs are, there, and people are switching over to EVs. And, electrification has reduced the tailpipe emissions. We all know that. But at the same time, these upstream problems, that is the supplier related issues and the battery production and mining, is not at all, is still not solved. I would say it is, although this is a very good thing, but the other factor here is the battery production and the mining. And we all know about lithium ion batteries and all kinds of things which are uh, there, and there are a lot of challenges, a lot of resource extraction like mining practices, and a lot of things which are there. And at the same time, we know, say example, I would give you that battery recycling is a very big problem, because the first step is the segregation. So segregation involves removal of the parts. So the design itself has to be such that segregation is easy. And say people have to plan for all these things when they are designing products. So during the segregation also, literally we see that people or workers are doing with their bare hands. They are segregating it, and there is a lot of exposure to lead and cadmium and all these heavy metals. So that makes this, as I said, labor practices or social issues with respect to, again, this electrification is also there, which is unnoticed many a times. People are focusing on the other aspects. How can you scale up uh, these, what to say, sectors? And also, how can you put the example, people may switch over from lithium ion batteries to something else. That could be the innovation in the future. But there are other things, as I said, we need to also think about the environmental and the social aspects equally in order to have this sector very sustainable. So we can see that again, this lithium, cobalt, nickel, rare earths, these are all stressed out. Again, you're depleting the natural resources. So there are a lot of people questioning this electrification. So it means that unless you recover all these things back successfully, these are still not fully sustainable systems, right? Please interrupt me if you want to ask any question because I'm just talking for a long time. Is it
Yeah, very
okay?
exciting. Can you continue?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Now
many
we
new
go to the,
information we learn. Yeah, what is
sure.
yeah, what is so far we many people think electric car is the substance, huh? But actually not. If we
No,
think
no.
about the ecosystem.
Yeah, unless you have a good reverse logistic system or you have a good extraction system or the battery recycling system, it is still not
Yeah,
sustainable, right?
thank you.
Yes. So in next sector, the fashion and textiles, very, very important thing that we see today's Gen Zs and all, we all, even we never think about consumption patterns. So earlier we used to like, I come from a very traditional background also. We used to buy clothes only during some specific, what do you say, ceremonies or say some what do you say traditional practices or say like during our Diwali and all other traditions only during that time. But nowadays we are not doing like that. We are just buying whenever we want. So our consumption patterns are also changed. So fast fashion is a very in thing. It is very good, but it is not at all a sustainable practice because we are dealing with overproduction, more and more production of these garments. So requirement of water also has increased that many times. Chemicals are used for the dyeing processes. What about the waste that is going into the water or the water bodies here, right? So water pollution, soil pollution, and so many other things. And let me give you an example that the labor that is working in these garment factories are the most exploited because uh, you know when in any cotton industry or a fabric industry we find that unless they give them the proper resources or there is the protective equipment like the masks or you can see there's a lot of fine dust, fine cotton dust always there. There is a lot of risk about respiratory diseases. There's a lot of heat, humidity, everything there. So, labor, workplace, or rather workplace practices, and all these things are very questionable in a garment factory or in general any textile industry. So, on the exterior, it looks very good. The big brands market these products. We buy it as consumers, but at the background, all these things are there. That is the social exploitation. And at the same time, the biggest thing that we see, or rather the companies face, is uh, the wastages, or rather unsold garments, or rather we can say that because of fast fashion, things just move out so soon that people are left with unsold goods. So again, there is from the environment or from the economical perspective also there is a challenge to the companies. So if you see that all these things need to have a circular model where recycled fabric. I've just shown here that there are companies which have ventured into recycled fabric. So the wastages are always taken care and they save money, plus they also take care of the environment. So these kind of things are very important for our fashion or this sector. For food and agriculture, again, uh, you know, this sector is the most impacted one, I would say, because of climate change. We all know that, especially in, again, I give the example of our country, due to intermittent rains, that is the pattern that is going on because of climate change. Too much of heat or heat stress has increased. The places which used to be cool are now very much warmer, and this is impacting the crops. Roughly 20 to 25% of the crop producers are decreasing every year because of these climate change related issues. So, uh, Food systems must also balance environment sustainability. Now, there's a lot of pesticides, fertilizers, and a lot of other things which are used. And again, there is a risk to the consumers also who are eating these vegetables and fruits and all kinds of things. So, these, number one, the farmers should not face issues, income instability because of the crop production. Especially smallholder farmers face a lot of issues because suddenly there are rains and they just lose their crops and they are left with nothing. So that is a very problematic area. So here technology comes to the rescue where there is precision agriculture is driven by technology, and there are a lot of regenerative or practices which are followed, which say example soil quality, water, how much of water is required, how much of pesticide should be used, how much of fertilizer should be, everything is correctly, done, and also uh, you get back the soil quality. That's the reason regenerative agriculture is there. Precision agriculture will tell you about, say, example, the humidity, the temperatures, everything will be monitored, and climate, also would be tracked, and accordingly, these farmers can be guided. So there's a lot of technological advancements in agriculture, and that is also a very important sector. Now, again, in pharma, I would like to tell that pharma industry, again, is a very critical sector. Why it's critical is because it is always temperature sensitive, especially because of cold chain practices, or the cold chains are those from the producer to the consumer, end consumer, you need to have a temperature controlled cold chain. So here you cannot have even a degree here and there. You cannot, there's no tolerance here with respect to temperature. And that's the reason it is very important to maintain the temperature right from one point to the other. Say the other point is in another part of the country. It is very critical to control the temperature as well as to monitor and track and trace all these uh, temperatures in the cold chain, because there's always a temperature requirement of these medicines, or say examples vaccines, or say example plasma, or any kind of thing that has to be shipped from one country to another. So you need a very good cold chain, otherwise you will just lose the quality of it. And the regulations are very stringent here. So basically, if you say that pharma industry is driven by a lot of regulations which are more, not only this, but there are also Food and Drug Administration, and then there is this, what do you say, you can say good laboratory practices, good manufacturing, GMP, GLP, and the good distribution practices also. There are a lot of compliances. So that is one thing in pharma. Then packaging waste is a very big problem. We know that there's aluminum use, there is polyethylene use, there is polyether use. There are a lot of these things which are disposed. We know we eat medicines, we just throw away the wrapper. So we are also creating a lot of environmental degradation because of these packaging waste. So how can we reduce this thing is a very big problem for the pharma companies. And that's the reason, again, the same thing, socially access, equity matter here. And as I just mentioned about the temperature tracking, IoT-based monitoring is there, AI-driven forecasting is there. But again, these things require investments. So again, when investments are there, companies think twice, but they need to think about the long-term benefits everywhere. So there are problems and there are solutions. We just need to find it, and we go to the next part of the slide when I discuss about the implementation. We'll see how things can work better. Construction sector is the worst sector, I would say, the hard to avoid sector. And we know that construction, I've taken in general, infrastructure and construction contributes maximum to the carbon emissions because of the building materials. And I would say every city is becoming warmer because of this, we have road construction, flyover construction, port constructions, then we have metro constructions. Everything is going on everywhere. But although it is facilitating business and it is giving a lot of facilities to the consumer, it is also increasing the emissions that many times. So the building materials are the main thing. Cement is a very bad thing actually from the environment point of view. Steel, these are all carbon intensive materials. So this is from the environmental perspective. From the what do you say, social, we would say that workers' safety is a very big thing. So social issues, giving them the good wages, giving them the site safety. There are so many incidences of workers' accidents on the sites. Then project costs are very high. Project management becomes a very important thing in construction. That since they're long term, say 3, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, the cost just boom goes up, and then they are really always they find it difficult to manage the project cost. So it is because of they don't look at the risks that come in the future, and risk management becomes a very important part in this, especially the supply chain risk is a very important thing in construction. And one more thing is there, that embodied carbon, which I just told you, that cement, steel, and all these things are very carbon intensive. So there's always embodied carbon in the construction. And that's the reason whenever we are calculating the, what do you say, carbon intensity, or we are calculating the life cycle, of this carbon, we need to also include this embodied carbon in this calculation. So there are a lot of other things like there are a lot of technological changes that are happening, like say example green cement or material changes. Beam is a very important solution for it. And then what do you say, green cement, green steel, and a lot of people are trying to go for passive cooling structures to reduce the the structural, or say example people are going for modular construction, where they are, you can say that, pre-constructed assembled things are just fitted. So modular construction is a solution to reduce the time of construction. So if you reduce the time also, you can reduce the emissions, because construction industries use a lot of water, a lot of energy, a lot of everything, and land resources. So it's a very important thing to have sustainable choices in the construction sector. Again, steel and heavy industries, I said, steel itself structure has carbon, so decarbonization is very important in this sector, and that's the reason companies are trying to go for green steel, and they are trying to have what do you say example, hydrogen based processes. People are trying this because I just told you in my first few slides that people are using coke, or the carbon. Coke is a coal actually, which is used as a fuel, as well as it is a reducing agent in steel industry, and that is actually causing a lot of emissions. And because of that, people have found out that hydrogen based processes, hydrogen is also a reducing agent. It can reduce the material and still create steel, and because of that, you just get H2O or water or steam, and as a byproduct, and not CO2 or carbon dioxide. But the challenge is that these hydrogen-based processes are very costly nowadays. There is still research, and there's still things going on in the. I can see something in the chat. Okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, no problem. I'll quickly wind up all these things so that I can answer a lot of things. So, So construction industry have again a lot of challenges, and carbon capture processes are also emerging. CCUS is a very promising concept which can help these companies to trap all these carbon dioxide and store it or use it for different purposes. So these technologies, that is hydrogen based processes and CCUS, are promising concepts, but however, because of the cost, it is still not being, what do you say, used, or rather, uh, still it is in a project stage, or people are still trying to do a lot of experiments with respect to it. In the next slide, you can see the retail, where I think yeah, the retail industry again drives a lot of waste like inventory. We see that a lot of companies face a lot of issues with respect to inventory management, and not to mention packaging waste. So packaging waste is something that uh, is a very big problem for many companies. And the returns, that is the reverse logistics issue. So again, the same thing comes back here again, that social conditions, labor conditions, or use of electricity, energy, these things are very important. And retail works on very short margins, so very, very tight margins. So they cannot afford to lose all these things here. And that's the reason today's technologies can help, that is data analytics, AI-based optimization systems, and all that. Again, e-commerce, as I just told you, that uh, with the increase in the e-commerce, or with the expansion of e-commerce, we're also equally amplifying the carbon emission. So that's the reason we have to work on or people are working on the AI optimization to suggest better roads, less emissions, reduce packaging, having innovative and sustainable packaging. But again, there are a lot of issues with respect to companies. So convenience is more a priority than the emissions right now. Electronic sector again has, you can say, a very big problem, because we can see that how everyone is affording mobiles now, where mobiles were not, or cell phones were not, not everyone's product earlier, few years back, but now everyone has a mobile phone, everyone use electronic products. And because of this, people are, and even the mobiles are lasting for only hardly few years. People used to use mobiles for so many years, but now mobiles phones are changing. Customers are changing the mobile phones maybe every year or every 2 years. So where do these things go? So it generates a lot of e-waste. Consumption has increased, so electronic waste also has increased equally. So there is a lot of important of life cycle assessment in electronics, or using the circular economy practices. We can always help to reduce all these emissions. And because we all know that electronics require a lot of rare earths, semiconductors, these are the very important things. And again, because of these things, the data centers and all require a lot of energy. So again, electronic sector, because of the telecom that is expanded across the globe, again, there's a lot of stress on the sustainable practices used here. Chemical industries are very difficult to change, because very, very difficult to change, because the material itself has to change and the process also has to change. So green chemistry is very important. Again, there are many companies which are trying to implement green chemistry, but that requires a lot of innovative practices, and it's very difficult. It's not so easy to change a chemical, because equally you need to have that efficiency. But there are many companies which have shifted from the hazardous material to the non-hazardous ones, which are equally efficient. So again, sustainability in this sector is also very important. And mining and extractive mining sector is very, very resource, uh, highly, we can say, resource intensive. And these extractions are also increasing like anything. And that's the reason governance has come is a very important thing now. A lot of policies have to be reframed or restructured because this cannot be the future. In aviation and shipping industry, sustainable aviation fuel is a very breakthrough thing, and people are trying to blend. At least they're trying to blend with, say, methanol, ethanol, or biofuels are being used, because we can see that aviation industry is also expanded like anything, and global shipping industry is also expanded. So alternate fuels also are tried out here. Companies like Merck's and many other companies have shifted to the blended fuels, and so SAF, or sustainable aviation fuel, is a long-term thing, but again, cost intensive, or rather, cost becomes a very important thing, how you can manage the cost. So I'll just try to cut this explanation down. Uncertainty gap is where the problems with companies are always the uncertainty in the systems because of demand fluctuations, because of disruptions which you're seeing every day. There are a lot of news in the geopolitics, or things that we need to change our routes because of climate, because of traffic, because of government, because of so many other things. And of course, supplier variability because of, say, changing the supplier to a different supplier also leads to a lot of uncertainty in the supply chain, sustainable supply chain. So the result is, unless you have a resilient supply chain, or unless you have uh, if you have this fragmented data, it is very difficult to understand what is going on in the supply chain. So again, right use of technology and a good collaboration is the only solution. I'll just take you around to this technology adoption gap. So we can see that many of the companies that there's this bell curve you can see here, where mm, we can categorize companies into these categories, where people want to adapt to technology, but they don't. Some of them are the pioneers, some of them are slow goers, some of them go very carefully, some of them adopt when there is compulsion, and some of them are the last ones to adopt. So we can see that technology adoption becomes uneven sector wise, or maybe at different in different countries, or maybe in different locations. Everybody do not behave in the same manner, and there are few innovators where they are the enthusiasts. Like, say, example, company want to implement hydrogen based fuel, they want to innovate something, so they could come under the innovators. Early adopters are, say, example, you want to do some digital twin in your system, and you want to go for the other visionaries. Those kind of companies could be coming under the visionaries. And early majority are those, or pragmatists are those who are very practical. They are looking at the successful implementation based on ROI. They are checking, and then they are going ahead with the implementation of technology. And there are these next categories, which is the conservatives, or the late majority ones, who are doing something only when things are under compulsion. For example, a regulatory uh, requirement, then only they will do it. And the skeptics or the laggards are those who don't want to change. They always want to follow the traditional practices. So there are these types of categories of companies who are in the area of technology adoption, but practical thing is always looking at the ROI, and since the ROI is uncertain in many of the cases, or they don't take into consideration a lot of costs, they are difficult, or people find it difficult to adopt to this technology. And there are a lot of, this is a very big problem, structural barriers, where there are technologies, but lack of standardized data, or lack of fragmented data across different tiers. They need some integration system. And there are companies which are playing a very good role in integrating different data into one system. So that type of systems will always work where there is a lot of collaboration and there is a lot of visibility in the system. I'll just quickly try to, am I going very slow? How much time do I have?
Yeah, 15 minutes more, and
Okay,
then
okay, okay.
we have 30 minutes for Q&A, huh? Today
Okay, okay.
we late 30 minutes. People on
Okay,
audience, we will late 30 minutes.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Okay, I'll just quickly go to this redesign thing and that what are the, or why do we need to move from optimization to the redesign? So as I just mentioned that traditional supply chains always focus only on efficiency and optimization, whereas sustainability is working on the redesign. And it also, you are rethinking that whether you should change the source, whether you should go for a different sourcing method, whether you should do a, say, example, a distributed manufacturing rather than only in a particular location, or whether you should have the, say, example, the warehouse or the company closer to the market. So you're trying to, doing some kind of change or redesigning in the system and also trying to understand the demand patterns and then accordingly redesigning the system. Now, many of the companies have tried to regionalize the supply chains. So why they're doing this is to reduce the transport emissions. Like say example from India going to some faraway country is not sensible. It will always lead to a lot of emissions. But rather than that, you may have a regional warehouse, you may have a regional distribution center that is more advisable because it can reduce the distance and accordingly the emissions too here. Uh, then supplier relationships are very important. Remember that a company cannot be sustainable unless the other stakeholders are collaborate or cooperate to this thing, especially the suppliers, because supplier engagement is very important and the relationship with the supplier is very, very important. So here, if you want to have a sustainable supply chain, you have to have your supplier into your system. Along with you, you have to go together. And use of technology here. So, say example, a digital twin is a technology which can virtually simulate your supply chain. Like, say example, you want to change your location, it will tell you what will be the scenario. Without even doing it, actually, you can understand because of the digital twin. And that can always support the data driven transformation decision. So, in this redesigning model, the first step should be the supply chain assessment and mapping. How can a company shift from a traditional to a new or to a redesigned system? First assess your supply chain and map it with the best one, or map it with the benchmark it with the best one. And then you can check your supplier network, you can check your transportation routes, you can check the emissions that you're doing. You always check your baseline emissions first, anyways. So you check your inventory flow, you also understand how much of waste you generate, waste energy you consume, water you consume, everything you do a benchmark thing at the first step. That is your assessment step. The second, for the assessment, the best thing is the LCA again, where you can always understand the carbon emissions and everything. So life cycle analysis or life cycle assessment is a very good tool for it. The second step is sustainability and risk integration, where understanding the risk part in every step. So supply chain risk integration will help you that, say example, risk at the environmental factors, or risk in the social factors, risk in the economic factors. Understand all sorts of risk, that if you do something, what would be the risk? So second step is always the risk assessment and the integration in all the three parameters. The third step is the network reconfiguration, where, say, I'm just telling, a company may go for near sourcing. You want to reduce the distance of the supplier and then you find, or even local sourcing, which is very good. In our country, we have a lot of local sourcing, or say example, import substitution is a very good thing to cut down the emissions. But again, you need that good quality raw materials and all that. So you change the supplier locations to a better one, which is shorter distance or shorter, you can say, which will help you not only economically but also environmentally, and all these things. You can understand your own manufacturing hubs. You can check your warehouse system. See, these things you can redesign. But again, this is a very careful decision that a company can take. Then you again redesign your transportation networks. Say example, from the plant to the customer, or plant to the warehouse to customer, something like that. Or maybe a warehouse to a distribution center to a customer. You can always redesign your system. Then regionalized hubs can reduce transportation distance as well as reduce emissions. Multi-sourcing will always reduce the risk of suppliers, because whatever we are seeing now is single sourcing is a very risky thing. Multiple sourcing or is always recommended. And distributed manufacturing is, many of the companies have switched over to it, but of course it is depending on what product it is. So that is the third step. And fourth step is always the technology integration in the redesigned structure, where you are incorporating the AI and the data analytics or predictive analytics, and maybe IoT, blockchain, whatever suits the system, and automating the routine task. It's more human centric, and that kind of thing. So smart logistics or smart manufacturing, all these things. So step by step, a company can redesign its system from a traditional one to a redesigned, and that which can facilitate sustainability. But for this, as I said, ecosystem collaboration is very important. A company alone cannot do anything. It has to have a good collaboration across manufacturers, suppliers, all the stakeholders in the business. And even the government policies and fiscal policies or any other policies of the government or the regulations, everything has to be aligned. So the digital platforms and blockchain enable everything, the transparent data sharing, but people should be ready to share data here. That is the important thing. So you have to have your supplier in your, uh, you have to work with your supplier rather, so that all these things are possible. Now, policy and regulation, as I just told you some time back, that say in our country or in many of the countries, there is voluntary reporting of certain category of emissions. So these things will never help the companies to be successful unless and until uh, things become mandatory. People don't want to change. So it should be also having a rewarding model, that if you are doing something good, you should get rewarded. If you are reducing emissions, you should get rewarded. So that kind of policy-based regulation will only always facilitate sustainability practices across different sectors, and that can you have to demonstrate as a company, and has to have all the transparent practices. So say subsidies, tax incentives, labor protection, these things are very important. That has to be from the point of view of policy and regulation. So regulation should not be just punishment, it should also be rewarding. Both the things should be there in the systems. And of course, green finance or sustainable finance is a very important thing, because these systems will always face challenges about investments. So, say I just told you earlier that say for solar, there are subsidies, or there are financial, financial institutions which are providing loans and finances for such projects. So these things also have to be there in the system. Unless and until these companies come forward or there is some kind of facilitation with respect to sustainable finance like green bonds or sustainability linked loans. So a company wants to reduce emission, they should get those finances. Unless and until these are there, they cannot change or they cannot implement. So a lot of sustainable financing options need to be there. And for the technology implementation, again, there are these four layers, which you would say, or the stages that are there. That for the first thing, that is manual system, where people are just reporting and you can just see what is going on. The next, that is, there is a lot of human intervention and people have to do a lot of manual practices. So all these things also have to have a phased timeline. Everything cannot just happen in just few days. So if you want to change over from a very traditional practice to a say technology inbuilt system, then you need to first align your all stakeholders. You have to have a good data infrastructure first that can facilitate such things, and then you have to roll out all these things in a phased manner. So first step could be the manual one, where you can just see what is going on. Second thing is where it is predictive, where you can systems will suggest a lot of things that is predictive. Third stage is the advanced stage, where it is prescriptive. It will tell you not only what you should do, but it will tell you how to do it. That is the prescriptive. And the autonomous is a self-learning system, where it doesn't require much of the human intervention, but it works equally like a human being, and it self-corrects, self-learning system. So these technology levels also can be implemented, but again in a phased manner. And of course, as I said, technology is there for human beings. That is very important. So we can say that human-centric sustainability is very important. The design of these systems should always be facilitating or helping human beings and not displacing their jobs, or just removing human beings or causing some problems to human beings. So they have to have human-centric sustainability, or any technology should inbuilt or have such things. So that's the reason we can say that human-centric design, like say example, you have certain systems which are, socially it addresses inequality, or it is also, see, you are implementing a technology, say example, farmers are getting benefited because of implementing IoT, say, in their farms. So they are also increasing their crop produce and they are also earning their more. Then those kind of technologies are always good. Otherwise, it is of no use, right? So also it has to be ethical and all those things. So um, I just will go to this. There are a lot of metrics and KPIs which are there to understand the sustainable supply chain. But as I said, it has to be a unified framework. Now, see, example, suppliers may be of different countries. Uh, Manufacturer may be in a different country. The other stakeholders may be in different countries. But the framework has to be unified, because you're ultimately measuring the supply chain sustainability across the supply chain. So the KPIs should be very much understood, and the metrics for environmental, social, or economical, all these things have to be continuously mapped and always checked. So unless and until there is collaboration, these KPIs, or rather people get stuck here only. And as I said, phased approach is the best one, where maybe a pilot test is done, and then slowly and slowly you can scale up into the say example, implementation of digital twin in a company or in a system cannot be just done like that, or some AI based system. We cannot just do it. You need to have a phased short term and long term approach. And this is a very important thing, that is risk of inaction. One needs to understand what will happen if you do it and what will happen if you don't do it. Say what if you don't follow certain sustainability practices, what will be, this is the iceberg model which I tried to show here, that cost of inaction is very much high, which people don't see because they have a very short vision. They need to look for the long term and understand that how implementing sustainability can help them to recover a lot of losses and the loss of competitive advantage. So uh, it's not only for a short term benefit, but for a long term value and a competitive advantage. So I had taken few cases. Do you have some time, or I should stop?
I think for the you take one case study, huh? Only one. You select one
Okay,
of.
okay. I had 4 steps, but yeah, say example, I'm just trying to talk about Walmart's project Gigaton. So in this, the challenge was that Walmart realized that nearly, sorry, 95% of its total emissions came from scope 3. As I told you, scope 3 is the that thing or the most tricky thing for a company to tackle. But see, Walmart understood that this scope 3 came not from its direct operations, but from its indirect emissions. And the company faced growing pressure from investors, regulators, and consumers to reduce emissions across its vast global supplier network. And for the what is it, transformation strategy, actually Walmart had started this long back. They had launched the project Gigaton in 2017, and they had the aim of removing or avoiding 1 billion metric tons of greenhouse gas by 2030. That was their goal. And what did they do is the first step, because this is only possible with the help of the suppliers and the other stakeholders. So what the thing they did is first step, they engaged around 4,500 suppliers across their supply chain. So supplier engagement was the first thing, making them understand that why this is important, how they can gain by doing this particular, by reporting or by transparently sharing all these emissions and all that thing. So that was the first step. Second step was data visibility. Because of the transparent practices, they could calculate the data, or they could understand the data across their suppliers and other stakeholders. The step 3 was the operational changes that they did in their supply chain. They changed, they restructured some of the transportation routes, warehouse routes, and a lot of other things. And then the fourth step they did was the ecosystem scaling. They redesigned the supply chain to a different one, and they started scaling it across again. And because of that, let me tell you, almost, I would say, 574 million metric ton emissions were reduced because of this redesigning exercise. So such kind of things were done by Merck's, also by Unilever, by Tesla, and there are other these leaders who have implemented this by redesigning their supply chain. So we are just talking about how redesigning can help to uh, implement or to have a good supply chain, sustainable supply chain here. So this is just a short case which I wanted to just emphasize that redesigning sometimes helps because supply chains are very dynamic. The traditional practices cannot be continued for a long time, but it requires a lot of rethinking and restructuring at the right time, and also the right strategy to change and transform. So that's all from my side. Thank
Thank
you.
you
I'm
very
open to questions.
much, Peter. The first question come from me with this case study from Walmart.
Mhm.
What do you think they will meet the target by 2030? I say no. What do you
May
think?
not. See, what I think is, if their target is to reduce 1 million, but even if they reduce 50% is also good, better than before. See,
Mm,
there are a lot of companies which have put all these ambitious targets, I would say. By 2050, I will do this, by 2030, we'll do this, by this. But at least they're trying, so they're reducing. Even if not 100%, 60% reduction, 70% reduction is also good, better than before. So
yeah,
why not? Yeah, at least we should try to be 100%. If not, right, Sandeep sir?
yeah. But I say that if they try to meet this target and then they create another problems, another issue with sustainability again, and we solve other issue again, and that's in the cycle again. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's in my thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So unless you balance all the other pillars, that is, see, if you're talking about environmental targets, then you also have to take the social and the economic together.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it is not at all sustainable.
Yeah. So now we move to the second session is the Q&A. So I hand over co-host to my co-host, Mr. Yi. Yi, can you please?
Yeah. Hello, Jing Ngọc. Hello, doctors. So sorry I encountered some ad hoc, so I can play. So I will prefer the live questions first for our participant here. So we have one long question and one short one. Which one would you prefer first? The long one or short one?
Anything, not a
Anything?
problem.
Okay. I will go briefly with the long one. So
Mm-hmm.
the first question is that so one of the this girl company is bonded to the commitment of choosing the supplier with qualifying environmental and technical certification. So she said that with a certificate from a Singapore company will cost the company around 100,000 K, and with the annual renewal is 10,000 K. So her question is that when we are committing to more environmentally friendly solution at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, so we release more burden to society or the economy. I think this question is to implement to about the cost and the sustainability.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't understand some part of the question. I'm so sorry. Can I see the text if possible?
Yeah,
Yeah,
can you
it's
see
it is it's in the chat, doctor.
Oh, okay,
So
okay. I'll just check.
it's a
I'll check
very
for that.
long one, so I
Yeah,
break it
I'll just
down.
check.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll just check in the chat.
see in the construction, huh?
Okay.
Mm.
Uh, mm, construction industry. Okay. No embodied carbon materials. Okay.
No, I know
Mm,
Singapore have the certification post
mm,
1,100,
mm.
100,000.
I should buy this and it cost. Oh, that's always. Mm, mm,
So net, there is a cost of certification, and should the
mm.
company go ahead
Mhm.
because it costs money, or they
Hmm.
don't go ahead and continue the normal way of doing. I think that's what I
Yeah.
understand.
Yes. That's what, like, if the company can afford and if they see that there's a long-term large benefit, it's always cost to benefit that they need to calculate. So again, if cost to benefits are more than cost, it's always sustainable. Sustainability always comes with benefits. That is the first thing that we should understand. And all those which are cost intensive but not that beneficial are really not sustainable.
Like it will be based on the circumstance of that company, right?
Yes. If it has
Hmm.
good financial position and there are very much long-term benefits. Say, example, you are going for this certification, and because of this, you get a lot of benefits in the long term in terms of economic and environmental and all investor-related benefits. And then these are very good for the long term. Then and you can also afford to pay for the certification. That's good. But if it's a small company cannot bear the cost, then it is not at all economically sustainable. You need to look out for other alternatives there.
I think this
Right,
is
Okay.
Sandeep?
where the support will be needed. If you look at it, unfortunately, there are certain certifying agencies which are actually making money in this long run, which is not good. So I think in order to give it a level playing field, I think smaller companies, I think there has to be a way, maybe the industry consortium, which can actually certify that. Because the industry has to come together. One company cannot fight this battle alone. That's what I feel.
Yeah. It will the society burden as well. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you, doctor. So now, to the short one. So it's not really a question. So I will come up to Miss Hung Thao question. So in brief, so in Vietnam and many Asian country, customers are increasingly interested in green hydrogens, but the current cost is still around 2 to 3 times higher than the conventional hydrogens. So from your perspective, doctors, so what practical mechanism or business model that already been implemented for the successful or the countries to bridge the cost gap between the, let's say, the environmental friendly hydrogens and the original one?
Yeah, that's a very good question. But as I said, that green hydrogen is still in a, it's not at all, it's not yet, it's in a project stage for many of the companies. It's still not commercialized yet or scaled to that extent. So it's costly. Unless and until there is, because there is a lot of problem of storage and other transportation issues that is increasing the cost. So I think we need to understand or benchmark with the companies that have successfully, implemented this green hydrogen.
A practical solution could be, let me give an example. When solar first came in, it was about 3 times, it was costing 3 times than your fossil fuels. But then what happened is more and more people adopted, the solar cells become cheaper. And now if you look at it, solar cells are actually cheaper than fossil fuels. That's why there's more adaptability. Same with green hydrogen, as rightly she said that it's still in pilot. So moment we more and more people start using it, there are scales, and of course, we have to still do some kind of a reverse engineering to figure out how we can uh, bring the cost even further. Because let's be very honest, if it is not profitable, not many companies are going to chase it because there is no real incentive to be sustainable because everybody still gets evaluated on GDP, year on year profit. So unless this becomes a measure, I think this will not work.
Mm.
Well,
Yep.
I think as Sir also mentioned, the larger companies can still do all this trial and error experiments like Adani and all these companies in India who are doing all the trials. So unless they are successful in the trial, the smaller ones cannot. You need a lot of finance and you need a lot of things to at least do the trial.
But I see overall, over the world, we have many countries. I will say, if one global country, one global company, they have many factories located in many countries in the world, and it depends on the policy of each country. So for me, very difficult to control, to meet the target. For example, Amazon or any countries in the world, they produce chemicals, and it's chemical also difficult, right? Very difficult. And this country, in Europe countries, they accept and they follow. But many countries in Asia or in Mid East, they don't follow because they don't have the money. They don't have money to control the cost, and the policy of the government also not support.
Yes.
Yeah, I see very difficult to how to say, many countries, many company, they have the target until 2030, but I see far further longer. Longer.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's like if you have 10 things in the list, you only do 2 at the end, 2 or 3. But still, you're better than 0. It's like that.
Oh, see an
Yeah.
example. If you look at it, to produce 1 liter of Coke, you need
Yeah.
2 liters of water, right? So if Coke can work on this and say that I will reduce the water consumption, that is good for them because it makes them more profitable. It is good for the economy also. I think we will have to look at those kind of solutions to really make it work.
Yeah, but of course we need to produce, we have the manufacturer to produce material for the cup and recycle after using. And
That's
then
what
maybe,
circular economy is very important now.
yeah, many things I see really difficult. I can
No,
say
no, it's a mindset
impossible.
because if you look at it when we were kids, We used to have those soft drinks in glass bottles, and we had to deposit it. And when you return that bottle, you get that money back. So there was an incentive for us to return that bottle. But then the use and throw generation started. It was a problem of plenty or whatever you call it. I think unless that mindset comes in, I think all this still remains because it has to be everyone. A company cannot do it because consumer companies, government, and all countries together. It's not that Europe is fighting a battle against Asia because all these things will not work. So I think unless everybody comes together, this will not really be very effective. That's what I feel.
But many people also mention about the cost. That's the most important.
Yeah, the cost is important. See, if you look at it, you have to look at ways. For example, let's say lithium ion battery. If we can have a way of using less lithium, if we can recycle lithium ion battery, so it is good for everybody, right? It saves company the cost. We are using less lithium because lithium is limited on this earth. So I think we will have to look at those ways how we can reuse. And I know fast fashion is notorious because we don't know what to do with the clothes. But if companies can give it and then buy it back with some incentive, I think we can still fight it to some extent.
Mm. But
Yeah, again,
sorry,
you
doctor.
have to.
Sorry, doctor.
Sorry, I hijacked your session. Sorry, Dr. Shushmita, I'm sorry.
No. My session is over, actually.
In the world
No.
right now, which country really strictly in the controlling in sustainability? So,
I think
Europe,
Europe
Europe,
is way ahead of everybody because if you look at France, if it is a 4 hour journey, you will have to take the train, though they don't allow airplanes there. So I think that's where they are very serious about that. So as I said, unless it's a country-wise initiative, you really cannot work it out because industry and country has to work. But Europe is, I think, they're still doing much better than the rest of the world.
how about Singapore?
Singapore again, what they have made it so difficult for you to buy a car, right? Because the taxes are 200% of the price of a car. So it's better you take public transport. So that's what they are. So that's where they have also done great.
But they have the policies, they have the target is until 2030,
And if you
zero.
look at them, it's green. You cannot really cut a tree just like that. You cannot just draw additional water. There are strict policies and they are enforced. So policies will
yeah,
be there, but unless it is enforced, I think
enforced.
that way Singapore has done fantastic.
And they're the best to save water.
Yes.
Not a drop
See,
of water is wasted.
when I was a kid, so we used to have water from the tap, right? And then bottled water coming in. Today, if you go to Singapore, you have to drink water from the tap. There is no concept of bottled water. So,
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think
that
that will conclude our question on the live. So we have 10 minutes left, right, Jing Ngọc? So you want another question or we
Okay.
already passed.
You can go to another questions because
yes,
many people they send the question when they do registration.
Yeah, many question when people register, we have like 10 more of them. But since we are not allowing time, I will pick one of them. Let me see. So there are many questions relating to the sustainability target and the cost, but I think we can go with the okay. How will supply chain sustainability change with the adoption of AI? How can you use AI to release the tension in sustainability, or AI will increase the use of emission? So yeah, that is one of the question.
Yeah, AI definitely will. I mean, AI has proved to reduce the emissions, but again, there's the question of the data, quality, security, and also the data centers. There are a lot of things that you need to check whenever we are implementing a new system. You need to check whether it is really solving the problem or not. So everything is going in a phased approach. As we saw that any new thing or any redesign has to have a phased approach where the implementation cost, the timeline, and the benefits have to be understood. And in that, see, basically, many of them are using it for inventory, demand forecasting, or transportation rerouting or rerouting thing, and any other things. So there are a lot of benefits. But again, the AI itself, the concept requires a lot of transparency and explainability and all other things. So again, if everything is transparent, everything is fine. Again, if there's scattered data, if there's no trust between different partners, then these systems will always fail.
But we also have to be careful that because of AI, the GPUs are being used, the greenhouse gas emissions have increased by 4%. So that way we have to balance it. Yes, AI will definitely help us reach there faster, but it also has to be balanced with how much of resources which we are using, because you have to cool the data centers, you are using a lot of these GPUs, the greenhouse gas emissions have gone up. So somewhere we will have to draw the line because otherwise the concept of AI becomes unsustainable. I think that is another angle which it's important to look into.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, doctors. So a very interesting question and a very we're all talking about AI right now. So you want to conclude your section here, or yeah, we can. Do you guys still have some time? Can spare for another question?
One last question, I guess.
Okay, one last question. Okay, I will combine this with my question as well. So I'm
Right.
working for a transportation company. We also have a separate Go Green dashboard for the sustainability. This will much more on the side of transportation sustainability, logistic, and it's the scope 3 and supply chain as well. So the question is, yeah, we also have the global logistic investment council, the GLEC index, right? And we also have a separate dashboard of calling the Go Green dashboard. So many of our custom manufacturing very hard manufacturing like apples, they have to follow the EU CRRD, very strict. And when we trying to apply our solution to our customer, so how would you think that with some of the big players, they make us to play as their way. So how can you compare the sustainability? Like you have to do it, or else you cannot operate it. But they are a very big player in the market. How will you comment on this?
Sandeep sir, you would like to take it?
We have to take it.
No, I think I will take it. So to understand, I think you are saying that how the big companies and the small, if they're trying to push their agenda
Yes.
yes. So I think somewhere we have to draw the line. For example, if you look at it, earlier child labor was very much rampant, but then there was a movement that we will not employ child labor. So that way, a lot of countries face this problem that there were no takers for that. So I think what we have to do is we will have to come together as a society, because if I don't buy but the other person buys, I think we cannot do anything because they have the financial muscle. So unless the society comes together, I think we will not be able to, because there have been cases where there has been rampant pollution. In fact, a classic example which I will give you. See, Tata Steel has a steel plant in Jamshedpur. It has a air quality index of 132. They have a similar plant in Finland, which has an air quality of 15. But Finland wants to close down that plant because they feel that 15 is way too higher. So that's where society is coming together. So I know it's will be loss of lives, it will be loss of livelihood, but I think when the society and the government came together, I think that is the only way we can actually fight some of these companies who are trying to push their agenda on us.
Yeah.
What is your perspective, Dr. Shabita, about this?
My perspective on this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what in my earlier thing I said, that a single company cannot do anything, and technology is really useless unless there's a collaboration between different stakeholders. So, because the structure of the supply chain has to be very good, where and good relationships has to be there with your partners, and government has to play a very good facilitator role. So, unless the good policies and regulations are there in place, however you want to do anything does not work out. And that's the reason certain things come under the policy things also. And as sir just mentioned that unless you're together or you have a collaborative network, things cannot be implemented easily.
Yeah. In the presentation of you, I also take note that cooperation, policy, finance, technology, human, on be
Yes,
together.
centric. Yes.
Yeah. That's why supply chain also have the good cooperation. If without good cooperation, we cannot success.
Yes.
Thank you. So I see another question in the chat box. Can we continue with this one and then we end, okay?
Okay. About ESG, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. People talk more about ESG as a framework to measure. Yes. In India, we are using the BRSR framework right now. And as I said again, in India, still scope 3 emissions is voluntary, right, sir?
Correct.
Scope 1 and 2 people are reporting, yeah, but 3 is still voluntary. Whereas in Europe, again, CBAM is there. It depends again on the policies, that if you make it mandatory, then people report it. And then if it is voluntary, who wants to really touch scope 3 emissions? It becomes difficult for a company to, or rather people to, they don't want to do anything unless it is mandatory. That is the whole picture right now. But there are these, see, everybody is a part of the global supply chain because of the other pressures, either the manufacturer or the supplier, people are doing it because they are a part of somebody's supply chain. So there are companies which are reporting, but maybe the companies which are out of that network are not doing it, they're not compulsorily doing it.
I think some people treat it as a compliance, which was not the intent, because there is no real incentive for companies to really present the data in a very granular or a correct way. So I think unless there is because we say all our suppliers have to be ESG compliant, but we don't pay an extra price to them for them being ESG. So why will a supplier try to be ESG compliant? So unless we incentivize them, I think this may not work.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. So that's it, the last questions in the webinar today. And thank you very much, Dr. Smita. You are safe immediately when I invite you to share about sustainability in supply chain to the audience in supply chain network team. And thank you very much, Sandeep. You join as audience and then you share a lot of opinions and perspective about the topics today. And thank you for all of you, the audience. Thank you, Duy, support me with the Q&A. Thank you, all the audience. You spend time, and now in Vietnam time is 10 o'clock p.m. And
It's
until
quite late.
here with us, we are eager to learn. So, and we know that very difficult to apply, especially in Vietnam. But we eager to learn and we want to know how it is and what it is and what is going on in the future. And today we learn a lot. And even in the future, if we read somewhere and we hear somewhere about the environment, we understand more. Yeah. And we collect more information and learn more and more and more. And I hope that in the future, not near future, but in the long future, And we will reach the target on the company and on the country reach the target, and we have the green environment to live. Yeah.
Yes.
But what you have done with semiconductor, nobody in the world can beat you. So that's something.
Very good.
Yeah, and I hope we can meet you in the near future. This is really near
Yes,
future, huh? Not a long future.
definitely,
Definitely.
Future.
definitely, definitely.
We
Definitely.
can, yeah.
Vietnam is a good place to visit. I know.
Maybe this year or next year we will invite you go to Vietnam for the Vietnam Supply Chain Network Conference 2027 or something like that. Yeah.
Sure.
Great,
And
great. We
again,
look
thank
forward.
you very much, and wish you all
Yeah.
the best, and continue with contribute to the sustainability supply chain to the community, to the world, to make it better and better.
Thank you so much. It
Thank
was
you.
really an honor to come here and present, and I hope I could, give justice to the topic, and we'll look forward for again meeting you online or offline as you recommend. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, and have a great night. It's quite late actually.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye
Okay,
doctors.
bye.
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.